Welcome back to the Means Report. Turning our focus now to our veterans. You know, Independence Day is coming up. I have some questions about that as it relates to our veterans and other issues that they're facing today. And I can't think of two better people to help me navigate those waters than Will Martin. He's the Chief of Public Affairs, for the VA Augusta healthcare system. Next to Will is Alfredo Perez. He is a counselor in the mental health area in the Trauma Recovery Clinic. Alfredo and Will, thanks for what you do to our beloved veterans, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Let me ask you, Will, just off the top, when it comes to the 4th of July and it comes to fireworks, are there always concerns for our veterans and those displays in the sky?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, fireworks, great for fun for a lot of people, but for veterans who've been through combat experiences, I think some of them suffer some PTSD, flashbacks and that sort of thing. So yeah, fireworks are always a concern. So it really just asks neighbors to be cognizant if they have neighbors who are veterans or in the military, just be aware and maybe have the conversation with their neighbors about that.
And just say, hey, this is something that's going to happen tonight?
Yeah, give them a heads up. I mean, that's always, it's not every veteran it's going to affect, but you just don't know until you have that conversation.
What is it about those fireworks, Alfredo? Is it, as Will indicated, the sounds sound like war?
That would be correct. Due to the nature of PTSD, right, our brains and our bodies, they get used to being in a position to protect itself over and over again. And if there's anything that reminds them of the traumatic event, especially loud sounds like fireworks, that can really cause some concern.
Is PTSD something that you deal with in most of your sessions, Alfredo, or are there other issues that pop up?
I would say most. I'm in a specialty care clinic for trauma, but the thing about PTSD is that it's what we consider highly comorbid. That means that if you meet the criteria for PTSD, it's not uncommon for you to meet the criteria for some other symptoms.
You know, when we
other
talk
disorders.
Yeah, okay, no, thank you for that. And Will, first of all, I want to thank you for your service to our country in the U.S. Army. An extra thank you as we celebrate the 4th of July. And I know that you mentioned in an email that you're willing to talk about how counseling has helped you. Talk about what you were facing and how you got through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of folks who are in the military, I kind of had that mindset of just pushing through my struggles, and that applied to emotional and relational struggles. And so that got to a point where I hit some blockage, basically, where it was really affecting my relationships. It was affecting how I responded to normal stressors. And so I finally got to the point where I reached out for some counseling through the VA, and it didn't cure it instantly per se, but what it did is it gave me the tools to address it. And it's been very impactful as far as being able to navigate the normal stressors of life that would be nothing to most people were significant to me. And so I can't encourage enough veterans who might be facing struggles to go ahead and ask for the help they need.
What kind of responses would you have to typical stressors? If you tell me that, maybe somebody watching says, oh, my husband or wife does that. Would you snap at people, cuss them out for no reason?
Yeah, it wasn't so much that, because I'm not particularly wired that way myself. That is true of some people. They'll have that visceral response. It's more for me, I would internalize it, I would shut down, which is almost worse in some ways because you're not dealing with the issue at all. And so I would block people off, cut people out of my life, whatever it might be. And that was my normal response to things that for you just might be an irritation.
How can you tell, Alfredo, if it's more than just an irritation? If PTSD is something that you should seek help for, or if you could, as Will thought at first, just push through it? How do you know the difference?
I think the way that you can find a difference, or understanding that there's a big difference with PTSD, is understanding or seeing whether or not these symptoms impact the quality of your life, right? If they're getting in the way of, like how Will was saying, with relationships, with your day-to-day, then it might be a good idea to give yourself an opportunity to get some help.
What if that help comes from somebody who's not a veteran? What would you say to a vet who says, that person doesn't understand what I've gone through because they've never experienced it?
I think what I would tell someone like that is to understand that people can utilize empathy, right? We may not know exactly what you've gone through, but by actively listening and being supportive for a person, we can help that veteran identify exactly what they need to take care of so that they can improve the quality of their life.
Will, when you start talking about PTSD and its triggers, at first, does that make it worse? Because you're bringing it to the surface and breaking it down. And isn't that sort of painful when you want to push it down and compartmentalize it?
Yeah, I mean, you could almost relate it to like exercise or physical therapy or whatever it might be. You do have to deal with that. But at the VA, particularly their trauma recovery clinic, those are folks who are experts in that field. So they know how to navigate, not to push it too far. They're constantly taking checks as you're going through the process. It's very structured. It's not just your typical talk therapy that you might go to your local counselor for. It's focused on PTSD, and there's a pattern to it usually for the veterans. And so, yes, it does bring it to the surface, but that's the only way you're really going to deal with those issues.
What's that therapy look like, Alfredo? Is it what we see on TV, people sharing in a circle perhaps, and there being that strength and unity because all the folks in the session have gone through whatever trauma they've gone through together?
We do offer some group-based therapies, and that can be a part of that process. But the important part of what we offer too is the requirement to complete daily exercises from the skills and the concepts that you learn in therapy. Because the more that you continue to use these skills, the more of a habit it becomes, and the less intense your symptoms become.
I listen to Will, I look at Will, I can tell that he is, from my lay position, on the road to a healthy, good life. Mm-hmm. Would you say that for most people who are dealing with issues, PTSD and otherwise, they can be cured or healed? And if so, how long does that take?
Well, to be completely cured and healed from PTSD isn't necessarily a thing, mm-hmm. but what you can do is continue to gain skills to take control of your symptoms so that you can improve the quality of your life. You're never going to forget about these events because they're horrific, but you can be the one in charge of how you feel about those events.
Do you remember a time, Will, where you felt the weight come off of your shoulders and you thought, I'm healthy now?
Yeah, it wasn't quite instantaneous like that. It was more every once in a while I'd realize like, wow, that trigger would have been a lot more intense in the past. Yeah. And now it's just something that I can step back from, observe, and decide how I react to it, be more proactive instead of just reactionary. So that's the real shift that occurs for a lot of folks.
Is medication ever a part of the approach at the VA in your area, Alfredo, and how beneficial is that in your opinion?
Well, sure, medication can be a part of the process. The way that we handle it in our clinic is that we can make referrals for the veteran to their primary care or the psychiatrist if they're interested in medication. Medication does one thing, and it's suppress and reduce the intensity of symptoms, but therapy is like the surgery, so to speak, and has longer term effects.
Yeah, I know that there are concerns when it comes to medication that people say, no, I don't want to do that. It'll change what kind of person I am. Is that true? Does it make you a different person once you start taking those pills?
I would say that it may allow you to gain more clarity of who you are as a person. And for some people, that may feel a little bit foreign, especially if they're not dealing with the same level of intensity of their symptoms. So it can feel new, but it doesn't change completely who you are.
Will, the fireworks, we started this interview talking about those, and it's appropriate for the 4th of July. Do they bother you?
Me in particular, no. For whatever reason, that's not a big trigger for me. Even though I was deployed to Iraq and saw some things, that's not for me. But I know other veterans who it is. They have to hunker down and put on the headphones or whatever it might be. So again, it's really an individual case-by-case scenario, and that's why those conversations with your neighbor who might be a veteran or in the military is worth having.
Yeah, I needed your assistance with that as well. What can the veteran do, Alfredo? Will mentioned headphones, hunkering down. What can the veteran do who says, okay, I appreciate you letting me know that you're going to shoot off fireworks tonight. Now what the heck am I supposed to do?
Well, in some cases, you can even find out the schedule of the fireworks because somebody may let you know that they're shooting off stuff in your neighborhood. But if you're out in public, you can put yourself in a position to may not be around that, knowing when they're shooting stuff off. If you're at home, you can maybe cool yourself down, take a cold shower. Sometimes that can help lower your temperature in your body gradually, can reduce some of the intensity that you may be feeling when you're feeling very overwhelmed, or maybe hold a little ice cube while you're getting overwhelmed. Maybe put on some white noise or some calming music. Distract yourself in a healthy way, knowing when these fireworks happen, put yourself and make yourself active, in a way to kind of keep your mind busy.
Healthy distractions.
Yes, sir.
Great advice there, and great information from both of you all. Again, thank you, Will and Alfredo, for helping our veterans. They protect us, they keep us free, they keep us independent, and I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thanks for this conversation. Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Will Martin, Alfredo Perez, great advice and input from them. When we come back, how you can help us get more great guests like these gentlemen, we'll show you on the Means Report.